The video you all have been finally waiting for on the channel, my Asian World Cup qualification previews, predictions, however you want to call it, it's finally happening. I know I'm a little bit late, the first couple of matches have already happened, but it's okay. Maybe it was meant to be that way. We got a little sample size of how each team have played so far in qualifiers, so it might make the video actually kind of decent. By the way, if you're a big fan of Asian football, this is the channel that you need to be subscribed to, so make sure if you're not subscribed already, subscribe to the channel, so make sure you're subscribed. So a quick little rundown of the third round of Asian World Cup qualification. The top two teams get automatic qualification, while the third and fourth place finishers go into the fourth round, which is essentially a playoff match, and then the fifth and sixth place finishers are just disqualified. Originally, I was planning to do each group separately, but I got a little bit lazy, so we're just gonna do it all in this video. And we're gonna start in chronological order, going from Group A all the way to C. So starting off with Group A, we got my beloved Iran, then Qatar, Uzbekistan, UAE, Kyrgyzstan, and North Korea. We'll start with who I think will finish in last place and move all the way up to who I think is going to finish in first place. So starting off with who I think is going to finish in sixth place, I'm going to go with Kyrgyzstan. I think this group is actually a lot more tougher than people might think on paper, especially now that we've seen the first couple of matches. No national team in this group is really that big of a joke, maybe outside of Qatar, but I think the weakest national team is Kyrgyzstan, so that's why I'm just going to go with them in last place. But I wouldn't be surprised if they do ruffle a couple of feathers and get an odd point here or there, maybe against the likes of Qatar, Iran, or Uzbekistan. Moving on to fifth place, I'm gonna go with North Korea. They're an interesting oddball because obviously none of us watch North Korean football nor really know much about the national team, and so far they've played pretty well. And I could be completely wrong and they have an absolute upset where they finish in one of those top four spots to still have a chance to qualify for the World Cup, but I'm gonna bet more on experience over surprise factor, so that's why I'm going to go with them in fifth. Moving on to fourth place, I'm going to go with Qatar. When it comes to Qatar in Asian Cups, they're like prime Brazil, as we've seen where they've won back-to-back Asian Cups, but then on the other hand, when they play in World Cup qualification, they play like Luton Town. For some reason, they're just cursed or can't put it together when it comes to World Cup qualification. We've seen it time and time again. They always fall short. They don't play like themselves, and we're already seeing that so far in this cycle, but I do think with their experience, they'll just hang on to dear life and get that fourth place spot to advance to the fourth round, but I don't know how they'll do depending on who they have to face off against. But I don't really have much hope for Qatar when it comes to their performances in this group. Moving on to third place, I'm gonna go with the UAE. I had high hopes for the UAE in the Asian Cup, kind of disappointed, but so far under Paulo Bento, they've played pretty decently. They absolutely destroyed Qatar. They didn't have a great performance against Iran, but they only lost 1-0 for how abysmally they played. Yes, Iran missed lots of chances. They only lost 1-0. I think they have a good manager. I think they have a good group of players. They could definitely kill teams on the attack, and I think that's what's going to make the difference for them, finishing in a third place spot versus a fourth place spot. I don't think they have enough to be one of the top two finishers because these next two teams I'm about to mention are kind of the top dogs in the group and have that experience, have a good enough system, and I do believe UAE will still have a couple of good results once this is all done and dusted, but I just don't think they'll have enough to be a top finisher in this group. Moving on to second place, I'm gonna go with Iran. I know it pains me to say it. I do think Iran are gonna finish in second. It's not really the end of the world because it's still an automatic World Cup qualification spot, but I think they just might slip a little bit in this group. Yes, they didn't have their best performances against Kyrgyzstan and UAE, but still won the matches, still kept the clean sheet. But when they face off against Uzbekistan, who have a really good system, a really good group of players right now, we already saw in the previous round, because they were in the same group, Iran wasn't able to win either of those games. They both ended in draws, and I think Uzbekistan are going to be dying. They're going to be chopping at their heels to get a win against Iran finally in World Cup qualification. Break that duck. But on the other hand, I do think we could see typical Iran where they win their games 1-0. They beat all the lesser teams. They may slip here and there with maybe a draw against Qatar, a draw against Uzbekistan, like we saw in the last World Cup cycle where they weren't able to beat South Korea, but because South Korea lost to those minnow nations in the group, Iran were able to finish on top because they beat all of them. They didn't drop any points to the lesser opponents. So I do think this is up for grabs on first and second. It could flip-flop, but I do think the top two finishers will be Uzbekistan and Iran. I think Al Anouni's stubbornness is gonna cost him a little bit when it comes to finishing in the top spot in this group. Then finally, for my first place finishers, I'm gonna go with Uzbekistan. If you guys have been watching my content for a while, I have rated Uzbekistan very highly. What they are building when it comes to their football is just sensational, and I'm honestly very envious about it because I wish Iran would do something somewhat, even just a little bit similar. They are really developing at the youth level where you're seeing them win major tournaments, and I think at some point, yes, it hasn't 100% translated yet, but come that 2026 World Cup, I think Uzbekistan could be one of the top dogs in Asian football and come out with some big wins in that World Cup. I rate this national team really, really highly because they have a project. They're striving for something. You can see that they have a goal in mind. They have a plan laid out. And I think Uzbekistan may get that one win finally over Iran in qualification. I think that's what's going to make the difference for them finishing in first place. Moving on to Group B, we have South Korea, Iraq, Jordan, Oman, Palestine, and Kuwait. When it comes to this group, I'm actually really excited to talk about it because when I did that video giving my raw reactions of the groups when they originally happened, a lot of Iraq and Jordan fans were really coming at me about it. So for all of those fans, be ready with what I'm about to predict for this group. When it comes to sixth place, I'm gonna go with Kuwait. I think when you look at this group, Kuwait is by far the weakest national team. I think they'll have some good performances, might frustrate some of the top dogs in the group, but when you look at everyone else, they are just the absolute minnows and weakest team in Group B. When it comes to fifth place, I'm gonna go with Palestine. It could flip-flop between Kuwait and Palestine for sixth and fifth, but I do think these two guys are just gonna be battling it out to not finish in last place, but again, I could be wrong. When it comes to fourth place, I'm gonna go with Oman. Oman, similar to the UAE, I had pretty high hopes for them in the Asian Cup, but they absolutely flopped. So I'm not gonna put all my eggs in the Oman basket this time. I've learned my lesson. They are a strong enough team to at least keep themselves in the Asian World Cup qualification race. Is that a top two finish for automatic qualification? I don't really think so. I think everyone else remaining in this group that I have not mentioned are really, really strong national teams when it comes to Asian football. So that's why I've gone with Oman in fourth place. When it comes to third place, I'm gonna go with the Asian Cup finalist, and that is Jordan. Jordan absolutely shocked the world in the previous Asian Cup, going all the way to the final, and were the nation that I was really hoping would win the tournament. But unfortunately, I think due to inexperience, I think that's what cost them in that final. And I think they have a lot to prove in qualifiers. I do think they'll be the best of like the rest of the nations in this group, the lesser opponents, you could say. And I'm confident that they will finish in the third place spot, but I just don't think they have enough to get that automatic qualification. When it comes to second place, I'm gonna go with Iraq. I don't know why Iraqi fans are really coming at me in the last video when I actually had a lot of good things to say about them, and I'm gonna continue that in this video because I think Iraq will finish in an automatic qualification spot. Nobody is ready for what Iraq is about to dish out. They played really well in the Asian Cup, were unlucky in the match against Jordan, shit happens, but I think they're gonna show themselves on the Asian football stage, get that automatic qualification spot, and maybe do something special in the upcoming World Cup. I think their crop of players, the team that they got right now, is very, very good. And I wouldn't be surprised if things flip-flop between possibly the first place finisher I'm about to say or them. I really think it could go either way. When it comes to first place, I'm gonna go with South Korea. As I said, I really do think it could flip-flop between first and second with Iraq, but I'm just gonna go with a safe bet and go with South Korea. I already kind of went with a hot take with the last group, and maybe it could be a reverse jinx, I don't know. But I think with South Korea's experience, with the talent that they have, Kang-in Lee, Hoi-min Sun, Kim Min-jae, that should be able to get them over the line and finish in a top spot in this group. I know right now they have a whole mess when it comes to the managerial situation, but regardless of that, I think they have the talent, personnel to finish in first place in Group B. And And now to finish off, we got Group C, which consists of Japan, Australia, Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, China, and Indonesia. Man, Group C so far has been very, very tasty based off what we've already saw in the recent results, so I'm pretty excited to talk about it. When it comes to my 6th place finishers, I think it's very, very obvious. You gotta go with China. It's just an absolute mess. China have not played well at all. Will they get a goal? Will they string even a point in this group? These are all the questions that you're probably thinking about right now when it comes to China in Group C. When it comes to 5th place, I'm gonna go with Bahrain. I know this might come as a surprise for a lot of you because Bahrain are a good Asian national team, but I just rate these other nations above them. I think they will get automatically eliminated, and you'll see why when I talk about the next nation. When it comes to my 4th place finishers, I'm going with Indonesia. The Indonesia national team has absolutely been turning heads, not only in Asian football, but in the world of football. They have been getting a lot of recognition, and rightfully so, for what this national team is doing. The dual nats, how they're performing, the project that they are building in Indonesia. It's so special. And I want to see, and I think that this Indonesian project is gonna at least go to the 4th round of qualification, and I really hope it does. So Indonesia, I'm sticking you in 4th. When it comes to 3rd place, I'm gonna go with Australia. When it comes to Australia right now, they are horrendously down bad. But is it really like a massive surprise? We saw this in the last World Cup cycle. We've seen it in other World Cup cycles. Australia just always seemed to like underperform, similarly to Qatar, not to that degree necessarily in World Cup qualification. I don't know if it's because they aren't really in that Asian sphere when it comes to location wise, but they always get the rabbit out of the hat. They always qualify, even if it means them going through all those playoff matches, and they play well at every single World Cup. It hasn't been a good start, but I think based off experience, the players that they have, they will get in that 3rd place spot and keep their World Cup qualification hopes alive. Next up in 2nd place, I'm gonna go with Saudi Arabia. Again, similarly to Australia, it wasn't a great start so far for Saudi Arabia, but I do think that they're just kind of like a slow train. They're doing a small build-up and things will pan out come the end. And I think they'll just have enough to finish in 2nd place.
It's not looking good, bruv. It's not looking good.
But when it comes to the 1st place finishers, I think it is extremely obvious, but it has to be Japan. Japan have been absolutely high flying so far in qualification. That loss to Iran absolutely scarred them to a point where they are showing no mercy to any opponent. Moriyasu badly wants to finally finish 1st in a World Cup qualification group, because for all of you that might not remember, Saudi Arabia finished above them in 1st place in the last cycle. So I think that he's wanting this team to buckle up and just absolutely bum wax every single team in this group, no mercy whatsoever. And I totally respect it. I didn't realize Amir Khalinoi was gonna bend Moriyasu this out of shape that he's gonna have to murder every single team in this group. Thank God Iran were not in the same group as Japan in World Cup qualification. It wasn't even possible, but if it was, thank God it didn't happen. But yeah, that's my thoughts, predictions, my preview for the 3rd round of Asian World Cup qualification for the 2026 World Cup. You guys gotta let me know in the comments down below which of my predictions do you agree with, disagree with. Let me know your guys' thoughts in the comments down below. Make sure to smash the like button on today's video if you love Asian football content, because that's what I do on this channel. So make sure to subscribe. But boys and girls, I hope you all have a lovely day.